Here's the number that changed everything for me. $3,400. Not $2 million, not the 25 times your yearly spending number every retirement calculator throws at you like a punishment for not planning better. $3,400 a month. That's what it actually costs to keep our family running. No extras, no upgrades, just the real floor underneath everything. The day I found that number, sitting at the kitchen counter with a calculator and every bill from the last 3 months spread out in front of me, financial freedom stopped being a fantasy I scrolled past on someone else's account and turned into math I could actually do on the back of a receipt. You know the spiral, right? You open the banking app after the kind of day where you didn't even sit down for lunch. You do the napkin math you didn't want to do. You close the app, and you feel like you're already behind on a race you never agreed to run in the first place. You've read the books. You've watched the videos. Spend less than you make. Invest the difference. Let compound interest do the rest. You know all of it. You could probably explain it to someone else better than they explained it to you. And you're still sitting there wondering why knowing turned into exactly nothing changing, month after month, while the number in the account barely moves. I'm Alora, and this is the Finance Mom HQ, where we talk about the money stuff nobody actually sits moms down to explain. And today, I want to tell you what I'd tell any mom who's serious about actually getting free. Not the version of serious where you save a few reels and never open them again. The actual shift that made this real for me. The one that took it from a Pinterest board of quotes to a real plan with real numbers attached to it. Some of it might sting a little. That's fine. In my experience, the parts that sting are usually the parts you needed to hear, and the ones nobody wanted to say to a mom directly, because it's easier to just tell her to budget better and leave it there. First thing, and I mean genuinely first, before any spreadsheet, before any app, before any of it, you have to believe this is for you specifically. Not for the people with the six-figure households, not for the ones with the lucky timing on a house they bought before prices went sideways, not for whoever it is you're quietly comparing yourself to standing at pickup in a coat you know costs more than your car payment. For you, with your actual paycheck and your actual daycare bill, and the student loan you're still chipping away at every month whether you feel like it or not. Here's the thing about most moms and financial freedom. We want it the way people want to run a marathon they've never once trained for. We like the idea. We repost the idea. We do not believe it in our bones. And if you don't believe it's possible for someone in your real situation, you will sabotage it without even noticing you're doing it. You'll quit the budget in week 3 and quietly decide budgets just aren't for people like you. You'll go looking for a reason this works for every other mom except you, and you won't even clock that you went looking for that reason on purpose. I did this for years, by the way, and I want to be honest about that instead of standing here like I always had it figured out. For a long time, I genuinely believed some families were just built for this, and mine wasn't. We weren't disciplined enough, or we started too late, or David and I just weren't money people. I said that phrase out loud more times than I'm proud of. Not money people. As if it's a personality type you're born into, instead of a skill absolutely nobody sat us down and actually taught us. So how do you build belief you don't currently have? You go looking for the boring stories, not the person on your feed with the watch that costs more than your car. The teacher, the nurse, the mom running a small daycare out of her own living room who got free in 8 years on a completely ordinary income, doing completely unglamorous, repetitive things, consistently, for a long stretch of time. Those stories exist by the thousands, and most of them will never go viral because they're not exciting enough to share. There's no dramatic before and after photo. Feed yourself enough of them anyway, in whatever 15-minute pockets your day actually hands you. The drive to daycare, the treadmill, the 15 minutes before the house wakes up. Something in your brain quietly resets what counts as normal after enough of this. Working full steam until you're 65 starts to feel like the strange choice instead of the safe one. That shift in what feels normal to you is doing more of the actual work here than people ever give it credit for. My friend Renee is who actually proved this to me, honestly, more than any book did. A few years ago, she was exactly where a lot of us are. 2 kids, a job she didn't love, a savings account that seemed to reset to almost nothing every single month, no matter what she did. She started telling people she wanted to be financially free someday, the way you'd say you want to run a marathon someday. Meaning, probably never. Meaning, it's a nice thing to say out loud at book club. Then she found one story, just one, about a woman with a job almost identical to hers who'd gotten free in under 10 years. No inheritance, no lucky break, just relentless, boring consistency. Renee has told me since that the specific thing that shifted wasn't the strategy in that story. It was realizing the woman telling it wasn't smarter than her, wasn't luckier than her, had genuinely just started and kept going. Renee is 3 years into her own version now. She's not free yet, but she talks about the number completely differently than she used to. And that difference is the whole thing I'm trying to hand you today. But belief on its own will not survive a hard Tuesday. You need a reason specific enough to hold you when the sacrifice actually costs something. And it will cost something real, not hypothetically, not in theory. It's driving the 7-year-old car while the group chat is comparing new ones. It's saying no to the trip everyone else is posting about from somewhere warm in February. It's packing lunches while every other mom at pickup is holding a drive-through bag and looking a little smug about it. All of that is easy for a week. This is not a week-long project. This is years, plural. And there will be a specific night. Everyone finally asleep, you're exhausted, the credit card is sitting right there in your wallet. The thing you want is sitting right there in a browser tab you've had open for 20 minutes. When a vague goal like financial freedom will do absolutely nothing for you. It's too fuzzy to hold any weight at 11 at night when you're running on empty. What actually saves you in that specific moment is knowing precisely what you're buying with the discomfort. For me, it's simple, and I've said it enough times now that it stopped feeling dramatic and just started feeling true. I wanted to be the one who picks Ethan up, not the one who hears about his day secondhand from someone else, relayed over dinner, because I was still finishing something at a desk when pickup happened. That's specific enough to survive a hard night, because it's not abstract to me. It's a hallway and a backpack and his actual face when he spots me at the door. Find yours. Maybe it's being able to say yes when your mom needs help without checking your account balance first. Maybe it's finally quitting a job that's quietly draining you before it takes anything more from you than it already has. Whatever it is, put it somewhere your eyes actually land on it every day, taped to the fridge, saved as your lock screen, wherever works, not because the note itself does anything magic, but because motivation leaves on its own schedule, one you don't get a vote in, and you'll need something waiting for you the exact day it's gone, and you're tempted to quit the whole thing. Now, here's where most of us get the math wrong from the very start, and honestly, it's not really our fault, because it's the only number anyone ever hands us. The traditional rule says you need 25 times your yearly spending fully invested before you're considered free. Spend $40,000 a year, you supposedly need $1 million sitting there. Spend 80, you need 2 million. On a normal household income, that number is so far away it stops functioning like a goal and starts functioning like a joke your own brain quietly tells you every time you think about it. 20 years of genuinely aggressive saving and you could still land short of it. So a lot of moms look at that number exactly once, feel the floor drop out from under them a little, and quietly decide freedom just wasn't built for people like them. I want to be really clear about something. That number isn't wrong. It's just answering the wrong question for most of us in this exact season of life. Here's what actually changed things for me, and it's a small mental shift with a genuinely huge practical effect. Full retirement was never actually the real goal, even though I'd let myself believe it was for a long time. The fantasy of never working again sounds incredible, right up until you picture what a random Tuesday actually looks like with absolutely nothing on it. A lot of people who reach true early retirement get restless and strangely low within months of getting there, because most of us are wired to need something we're building toward, some kind of forward motion, some project. What you actually want isn't never work again. It's never be forced to do work that drains me just to keep the lights on. And once you're honest that that's the real target, the number underneath it changes completely. It's not 25 times your spending anymore. It's just this. What does it genuinely cost every single month to keep our actual family running? Not the upgraded version with the nicer car and the bigger house you sometimes picture on a hard day. The real floor. Housing, the car payment, groceries, insurance. The genuine essentials. Nothing decorative sitting on top. For a lot of families, that number lands somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000 a month. Once you actually know it, the question in your head changes from, how do I somehow save $1 million? To, how do I build something that covers this one specific number without needing anyone's permission to keep it? That's not a 20-year problem anymore. On a focused plan, That's a few years' problem, and that shift alone is worth the whole video. Let me show you what I mean with real numbers, because vague is exactly how this stays stuck. Say your family's real floor comes out to $3,600 a month once you strip out everything decorative. That's $43,200 a year. Under the old rule, you'd be told you need just over $1 million invested before you're allowed to feel free. Under the real floor version, the question becomes, what would it take to have $3,600 a month showing up without a job attached to it? Even partial progress counts here. If you and David together build something that reliably brings in $1,800 a month outside of a paycheck, you haven't hit the whole target, but you've already cut what your job needs to cover in half. That's the part nobody tells moms. This isn't all or nothing. Every partial stream of income you build is real progress against a real number, not a rounding error against an imaginary million. If you're the kind of mom who wants the real numbers instead of the vague advice, this is exactly what this channel is for. So hit subscribe now and stay, because it only gets more specific from here. And this is exactly where your expenses become the single most powerful lever you have access to right now. More powerful than almost anything else we're going to talk about. Because every dollar you cut off that monthly floor is a dollar you never have to go out and earn back through a side hustle you don't have time for, or a raise you're still waiting on. Cut your family's baseline from $7,000 a month down to $3,500, and you have just cut the entire difficulty of this whole plan in half, overnight, without a single extra hour of work on top of what you're already doing. Housing is the biggest single piece of that, usually 30% or more of what an average family spends every single month. If you can meaningfully shrink that one number, you've just removed the biggest weight sitting on top of the whole plan. One option some families genuinely use: buy a small multi-unit property, 2 to 4 units, with an FHA loan, as little as 3.5% down. You live in one unit, you rent out the others. Done carefully, the rent from your tenants covers the mortgage, and your own housing cost drops close to zero. This is not a fantasy scenario I'm describing to make a point. Young families do this every year, usually accepting a slightly less polished neighborhood or a little more hands-on maintenance for a few years while renters quietly cover the note for them. It is genuinely not for everyone, and I am absolutely not telling you to go put an offer on a fourplex by Friday. But if it's even remotely on the table for your life, it deserves a serious look instead of an instant no just because it sounds intense. And if it's not on the table at all right now, the smaller versions of the same idea still move the needle in a real way. A slightly cheaper area, a smaller place than you'd pick with unlimited money, a season of living with family while you bring that number down on purpose. None of it is glamorous. All of it shortens the timeline more than almost anything else on this entire list. Cars follow the exact same logic, just at a smaller scale. The average new car payment now regularly runs well over $700 a month, and once you add insurance, gas, and maintenance on top of that, transportation alone can quietly eat close to $1,000 of a family's budget without anyone ever sitting down to actually add it all up in one place. A reliable used car, bought in cash, driven for 4 or 5 years, and sold for close to what you paid for it, can hand that $1,000 a month straight back to you every single month for as long as you drive it. It is not the car in everyone else's driveway at school drop-off. It is the car that quietly buys you 5 years of your life back. And then food, which sounds small compared to a mortgage payment, right up until you actually sit down and track a real month of it, receipts and all. Planning meals for the week ahead instead of deciding at 5:30 when everyone's cranky and the pantry looks emptier than it is. Batch cooking on a Sunday afternoon, so Wednesday you isn't completely at the mercy of Wednesday you and whatever's fastest. Trimming the delivery apps down to an occasional treat you actually plan for, instead of the automatic answer to a hard day when you're too tired to think about dinner. None of these individually feel like they're doing much when you look at them one at a time. Stacked together with housing and the car, they can genuinely pull a family's monthly floor down by 40 to 60%. That's not a diet, and it's not deprivation. And it's definitely not me telling you to stop buying your coffee. That's your entire timeline to freedom getting dramatically, measurably shorter, one boring Tuesday decision at a time. Here's the part I really want you to sit with, because I think it's the piece nobody says out loud to moms specifically, and it took me embarrassingly long to actually believe it myself, even after I understood it in theory. Your paycheck was never going to walk you all the way to free on its own. Its actual job is smaller than that, and once you stop expecting it to do something it was never built to do, everything gets easier. Most of us take a look at what we bring home, quietly picture how many more years of that exact same paycheck it would take to reach a real number, and give up somewhere around year 2 of thinking about it. Because for most households, that arithmetic genuinely doesn't resolve in your favor. 20 or 30 years of saving on a normal income can still leave you short of that old 25 times number. So we quietly conclude that freedom just wasn't built for people at our pay grade, and we go back to not thinking about it too hard, which is exactly what keeps the whole thing stuck in place for another year. What we're missing in that moment is that the job was never actually supposed to be the entire plan by itself. A job trades your hours for a fixed number, and that number has a ceiling on it, whether you're brand new or 20 years in, whether you're phoning it in or quietly putting in extra hours nobody notices. Real freedom needs something underneath it that doesn't have that same ceiling. So instead of thinking of this as one long, scary grind toward one enormous number, think of it in 2 separate phases instead. Phase 1 is what your paycheck is actually for, paying down the debt that's quietly taxing you every single month, building an emergency fund so one car repair or one sick kid doesn't undo 3 months of progress in a single afternoon. Bringing that monthly floor number down using everything we just talked about and buying you time. Phase 2 is whatever you build with that time, something that isn't capped by how many hours you personally have in a day. Your job isn't the enemy in this story, even on the days it genuinely feels like it is. It's the thing quietly keeping the lights on while Phase 2 gets built in the background, a little at a time. But if Phase 2 never actually starts, Phase 1 just quietly becomes forever. And that is the exact trap most of us fall into without ever consciously deciding to. Let me make Phase 1 concrete, because vague advice is exactly how people stall out here too. Say you're carrying $9,000 in credit card debt at a punishing interest rate. You have roughly $600 sitting in savings, and your paycheck covers the bills with maybe $200 left over most months if nothing goes wrong. Phase 1 isn't glamorous, and it's genuinely not supposed to be. It's throwing an extra $300 or $400 a month at that debt, instead of letting the minimum payment quietly bleed you for years. Because at 18 or 20% interest, that debt is actively working against every other plan we've talked about today. It's building that $600 up to a real emergency fund, even just 1 month of your real floor number, before you do anything else exciting with extra money. It's the boring, repeated act of automatically moving money the day your paycheck lands, before you've had a chance to talk yourself out of it. None of this is the fun part. This is the part that makes the fun part, Phase 2, even possible. Skip it, and every dollar you eventually make in Phase 2 just goes straight back to paying off Phase 1's mistakes, instead of building your actual freedom. I'll tell you honestly where David and I actually landed on our own numbers, because I think it helps more than another hypothetical would. Our real floor came out closer to $3,900 once I stopped lying to myself about what essential meant. That was higher than I wanted it to be, and lower than I was afraid it might be, both at once. We didn't fix it in a weekend. It took us the better part of a year just to get our monthly floor down by about $600, mostly food and one car decision we'd been putting off for 2 years, because neither of us wanted to deal with the hassle of selling the old one. $600 doesn't sound like much on a slide. It's real money every single month, forever, once it's actually locked in. And it didn't cost either of us a single extra hour of work to get it. That's the part that convinced me this whole approach was different from every other money advice I'd tried before. It didn't ask me to be more disciplined. It asked me to do the math once, honestly, and then let the math keep working quietly in the background, whether I felt motivated that week or not. That's where I want to stop for today, because Phase 2, the actual difference between income that's capped and income that genuinely isn't, deserves its own full conversation, instead of 5 rushed minutes tacked onto the end of this one. In the next video, I'm walking through exactly what that looks like, the 2 types of income and why only one of them can actually set you free, why the skills to build the second kind are entirely learnable and not some talent you were either born with or weren't. The 3 specific things that quietly stop almost every mom before she even really starts, and the 2 honest timelines you can choose between depending on what your actual life looks like right now, not what someone else's does. If today's number, the real one, not the 25 times you're spending one, made you rethink anything at all, that next part is where all of this turns genuinely practical. Tell me in the comments, have you ever actually sat down and worked out your real number, the bare floor, not the comfortable version you'd pick with unlimited money? I want to know where you landed, because I think most of us have never once done that math on purpose, myself included until that day at the kitchen counter. I'm Alora, this is the Finance Mom HQ, Raising Kids and Retirement Funds. Go take care of both, and I'll see you in the next one.